Hello, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of ARBinBRIEF, your practical guide on handpicked arbitration issues. ARBinBRIEF is produced in collaboration with 𝗔𝗥𝗕𝗙 and the International Arbitration Center of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, LACIEC. My name is Vanessa Meireles, and I'm part of the ARBinBRIEF team and a Brazilian lawyer practicing arbitration with Luther in Hamburg, Germany. I have the pleasure of moderating today's episode on the strategic composition of the arbitral tribunal. Our discussion today features Sofia de Sampaio Jalles and Cecilia Azar. Sofia is a partner at Ernesto Associados in Madrid. She's a Portuguese national qualified as a lawyer in France and acts as arbitrator and secretary to arbitral tribunals in international commercial arbitrations. Cecilia is a partner and co-leader of the arbitration practice at Jalles Abogados in Mexico. She acts as arbitrator, counsel, mediator, and expert in Mexican law and has more than 25 years of experience in ADR. Sofia and Cecilia are here with us today to share their expertise and experience on the strategic considerations they make when composing the arbitral tribunal, which is one of the most important steps of an arbitration proceeding. That is because many of the fundamental elements of arbitration depend and are affected by this decision. The impartiality, ethics, independence of the arbitrators come first to mind, as they can risk the enforcement of an award. Other aspects commonly addressed are the expertise, experience, and reputation of the arbitrators, but many practical and subjective elements might be more difficult to assess. Arbitration practitioners have the task of carefully analyzing different characteristics of the arbitrators and aspects of the case in a strategic manner in order to take the best suited decision to the case at hand. These considerations differ when taken from the perspective of the parties and their representatives, and when taken from the perspective of the co-arbitrators. Cecilia, in your practice, you have the experience from both angles. Can you tell us a bit about your experience with these considerations from the perspective of a party representative? What are the main aspects that you consider when suggesting a list of arbitrators to your client?
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you for the invitation. So yes, first, I think it is important to distinguish between appointing a co-arbitrator or the chairperson, the president of the arbitral tribunal. So if I am appointing a co-arbitrator, I would probably give more weight to his or her experience on the merits of the case. On the other hand, if I am appointing a chairperson, for example, I would give more relevance to his or her experience on the conduction of the arbitration, procedural aspects of the case, etc. Then I think there are several aspects to consider as well. First, for example, the perception that person has within the market of the arbitration of impartiality and independence. Then the language of the arbitration, the nationality of the candidate, his or her experience in that legal system, common law versus civil law, the applicable law of the case, the legal issues that would be discussed, his or her availability and diligence, and sometimes, because this is important for some candidates, the amount in dispute.
Okay, are there any specific challenges that you face?
Yes, several. But I will focus on three main challenges. And this is, of course, referring to my jurisdiction, to Mexico. So the first one would be gender balance. It's still difficult to get a gender balanced list. The second challenge, I would say, it is very frequent in Mexico having clients requesting to see within the list the usual suspects. Even if you try to be diverse and to add new names, clients often request to have the usual suspects within the list. And the third one would be conflict check. We have to keep in mind that Mexico remains a medium-sized arbitration jurisdiction, and sometimes it is not easy to find enough options considering the characteristic of the case.
this is probably a characteristic that can be brought to many other jurisdictions, that you will have always the
Absolutely.
suspects that the clients will want to see in the list. Sofia, are there considerations from your practice from an arbitrator point of view? Are they in any way similar? What would you have as main concerns, as aspects when considering names for the chairperson, the president of the arbitral tribunal?
Thank you, Vanessa, and just thank you very much to you and Lizzie for the invitation. It is an honor to participate in this great initiative that is ARBinBRIEF, and particularly to do it alongside Cecilia. Turning back to your question, Vanessa, many of the considerations from a co-arbitrator's point of view are similar to those that Cecilia has already described. The first thing I consider is that the party who appointed me must feel comfortable with whomever my co-arbitrator and I are choosing as a chairperson. The second thing that is on the back of my mind is the size and complexity of the dispute. Sometimes the parties suggest names that are not realistic. A party cannot expect to have, say, 𝗔𝗥𝗕𝗙𝗥𝗕𝗙 acting as chairperson in an ad hoc case where the parties are simply discussing the non-payment of some invoices with an amount in dispute of 500,000 euros or dollars. This is like hoping to have Cristiano Ronaldo play for a football club in the 3rd division of Portugal instead of play in the Champions League. And there are different players for different types of leagues, and the same happens with arbitrators. And this will depend on their experience and the case at hand. Otherwise, there is a risk of distortion of the market. The third aspect that I consider is whether the person is known for being an impartial, professional, and diligent arbitrator who will have the necessary time to dedicate to the matter. And these, for me, are cumulative characteristics that must remain constant in time. For me, it's important to know that the chairperson is regarding as having a strong sense of impartiality, but also that they will look at the case with the attention it deserves. Some arbitrators are very enthusiastic at the beginning of the proceedings when someone appoints them, but then they start to lose interest because the case is simply not their priority. And for me, this arbitration, no matter its size and complexity, must be a priority for the arbitrator. As Cecilia said, I also keep in mind the importance of having a diverse list of names, not only of gender, but also of different backgrounds and places. And being a young arbitrator myself, I will try to suggest names of other young arbitrators who, in general, will want to cause a good impression and will dedicate double the effort to the case. And I would definitely not choose a chairperson who tends to be dismissive towards younger arbitrators. And fortunately, I've not had this experience so far. And finally, an aspect that is often overlooked is the harmony within the tribunal. It is important that both co-arbitrators feel comfortable with the chairperson and do not think that the chairperson would have a natural tendency to get along better with one arbitrator than the other. And people do not always realize up to what point personal preferences may influence the choice of the chairperson. I have heard more than one case in which an arbitrator refused to work with another practitioner due to a previous, let's say, not so good experience. So yeah.
I see. Cecilia, do you have a similar experience when you're practicing as an arbitrator? Are there other aspects that you consider, or have you ever had the similar experience of having an arbitrator refusing to work with another for lack of compatibility?
Yeah, well, I haven't faced that specific situation, Vanessa, but I have faced situation where one co-arbitrator undermines the other co-arbitrator, and it's difficult to handle. For example, once I was sitting as president of a tribunal, and one of the co-arbitrator, male co-arbitrator, during deliberations, when sharing comments, he constantly avoided to make eye contact with the other co-arbitrator, female co-arbitrator. So it was very uncomfortable because even when he was answering to a question she made, he answered the question to me, not to her. You see what I mean? and the dynamic, I don't know, it was really, really uncomfortable. So in that case, for example, I decided to conduct the deliberation online because online it was, I mean, it wasn't so obvious. Some other uncomfortable experiences, for example, receiving a call from one of the co-arbitrators after deliberation to discuss about the other co-arbitrator performance during the session. Or you probably have a co-arbitrator arriving earlier to the deliberations or to the hearing in order to start discussing or sharing comments with you as president of the tribunal without having the other co-arbitrator in person or present. So things you have to learn how to handle with.
How to deal as an arbitrator.
Yeah.
I see there are a couple of different actions and considerations. What about the pre-appointment interview? Do you usually do them as counsel? Can you briefly tell us about your experience?
Of course, honestly, Vanessa, I don't like them. I don't like those interviews. I only conduct them if the client requests. So only if the client asks for us to have the interview. So in those cases, you basically ask about the candidate experience on the general matter of the case. For example, his or her experience on construction cases, investment, shareholders disputes, those kind of questions, and of course availability. You don't ask the candidate to run conflict during the interview. Normally, you ask that person to run conflicts before the interview. So once you are having the interview, that means that you already clear conflict with that person.
Okay, so a little bit more the objective experience and not the subjective aspects are considered in this interview.
Absolutely.
What is your experience, Sofia, from an arbitrator side, from the other side of the interview? What are the questions that are usually asked? Have you had experience with weird questions that were asked, and how do you deal with this kind of maybe inappropriate questions that would possibly compromise your independence and impartiality?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that Cecilia said already. Under most rules and best practice, it is accepted that the parties interview potential candidates to arbitrator, and that co-arbitrators also conduct interviews with presidents, although this is a lot less common in my experience. And these interviews, sometimes they do not always take place by phone or by video conference, but sometimes just in writing as well. And the questions that are most usually asked are whether there are potential conflicts of interests or anything to reveal. But as Cecilia said, that's generally at a pre-interview level. Obviously, secondly, the availability of the person in the coming months, especially if the case is very time intensive. And thirdly, whether the person has acted in other cases with a similar subject matter or object of the dispute and is therefore familiar with the matters at hand. And when being considered as a potential candidate to party-appointed arbitrator, I would likely feel uncomfortable being asked questions that go beyond these broadly accepted set of questions. And I have heard of cases of people who have been asked more compromising questions by counsel. It has not been my experience, but I know that some people are asked whether the arbitrator would have a certain inclination towards a particular issue, or how they would hypothetically decide X or Y matter. If I were confronted with something like this, my tendency would be to make it very clear that if a party expects me to decide one way or the other, or to have a certain inclination, then I am definitely not the candidate for them, and they better look for someone else. And I think this should be the answer of any impartial and independent arbitrator.
Yeah, that sounds like a good answer to avoid this kind of questions. Finally, a question to both of you. Can you name 3 decisive criteria in the final selection of an arbitrator for our audience to keep in mind? Sofia.
Yeah, for me, impartiality, diligence, and professionalism.
Cecilia?
Likewise, impartiality, being a good lawyer, and diligence.
So everyone now has their 3 main criteria, different a little bit from one to the other, but good takeaway. Thank you very much, Cecilia and Sofia, for a very insightful and inspiring discussion. We also thank our partner organizations, 𝗔𝗥𝗕𝗙 and Lagos Chamber of Commerce International Arbitration Center. To see future ARBinBRIEF videos, please follow us on LinkedIn and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also would love to hear for your comments and feedback. The next episode will air on 21 February, featuring a discussion on the types of remedies in ISDS by Jalles Jimenez and Claudia Frutos Peterson, moderated by Stefania Contreras. You can register for it on our website, www.arbinbrief.com. We look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.